Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jutsu. I'm Dane, and in today's episode, I'll be discussing some of the techniques I use in designing the support. So, a lot of you have been guessing that I use bookmarks, DAX. Yes, I did use a lot of DAX, of course, but I use bookmarks minimally, and it's not for the purpose you think it is. So, I use bookmarks for this and nothing else. So, how did I make it possible to make the background dynamic? So, how did it make it possible to make the background dynamic? Okay, so let's start with this. In my data, I do have a table of Pokemon types, combination Pokemon types, and then another table of unique Pokemon types. So what I did was I copied the types. I want to I want to chat GPT with chat GPT and ask chat GPT to generate hexadecimal values for trees. Oh, that's one. Okay. Then after that, I asked ChatGPT to generate two more columns with hexadecimal value. The second column rather, is a notch darker, and the other one is two notches darker. But I'm not gonna copy this. Already have the data in my semantic model. So this is what I have. I have these three now. So so basically they are about the same. Yeah, they're about the same for bug and then bug water. And you might have already guessed what I'm going to do with this. Okay. The next thing you want to do is to download this HTML visual. Go to get more visuals and then look for HTML. You'll be presented with a lot of choices, but what you want to download is HTML content by Daniel Marsh Patrick and not HTML content like. The second one doesn't allow external URLs, so they will not be rendered, so we'll use this one. Okay, the next thing we want to do is go back again to ChatGPT. With ChatGPT. And then ask ChatGPT something. Ask ChatGPT to generate a CSS for a linear gradient background. And you want it to have, you want it to use angle. We want to use angle. Use three colors. So we now have a code and we are going to test it. You can look for any HTML render online. Just paste that. And now we have our gradient. The next thing to do now is to go to Power BI and create a measure. So linear CSS background, three colors, and paste that. Now highlight a double quote. On your keyboard, press Ctrl Shift L simultaneously, and that will highlight all double quotes. Replace that with single quote, and then wrap the whole code with double quotes. And let's check if this will return anything. Oh, this not return anything. Okay, so what did I do with my passcode? Okay, so I didn't use percentage, I use 100 VH. Now, if you're someone who's very good at HTML or very familiar with it, this will be easy peasy for you. But for us who are not that good or a complete noob at HTML, then we'll need a lot of help from ChatGPT or anything from the web. Let's see if this works. Now we have our gradient background. Now this one's static. It will not respond to our slicer selection. What we want to do is to make this respond to our slicer selection. What we do now is this. I'll make a variable called colors. Combine values. I'll use max instead of selected value because if I don't select anything on the slicer, the hexadecimal values will turn blank and so no color on the gradient. So max x1. Oops, let's try our delimiter first. Our delimiter is a comma, max x1. And 3. Return. And then we'll replace this with our variable colors. Now let's see. Now response. Then we kind of want to change this. We want to play around with colors. Let's say let's add black. Black. Let's and then black again somewhere. Yeah. So we now have our colors. And we can also change the angle. Let's say 150. 130. So you can always play around with the angle until you get your desired gradient. Okay. One thing I noticed about this custom visuals is that there's no option to remove the border. Actually, there's no option for the border at all. The content formatting, style sheet, general, effects. There is an option for the border, but it's the outer border, not this white border around the edges. So I'll move the border and visual border, remove, and I'll change that to, actually it's a background. Field value, X. Go for last or first. It doesn't matter if once you have clicked an item from the slicer. So you want a color that's pretty close to the gradient. Instead of, so you want the color to respond to the slicer selection, and you can actually do that with shapes as well. Let me insert shape, style, color, and then custom color, field value, X, first, last, and then just remove the borders. Visual effects, shape, border. So basically, it's um a table of colors or hexadecimal values. It's not just for the gradient. You can also use that to dynamically change the color field of a shape. And of course, you can always add transparency. But I did not use this newly created measure. Instead, I already have one with me, CSS. I use this instead, which is pretty much the same. Mm, Go to stats. Okay, so now we have the background. What about the image effects? Well, I still use HTML except for this one here. This is a custom vis called image grid, which resizes the image based on whatever field you place in the visual. Um, Selection. Mm, Image. So I have a smaller image URL and another image URL, which is larger. But even if you use just a single column, it will still kind of try to zoom in whenever you hover the image. So now let's go to the image effects. Let's go back to ChatGPT and ask to generate an image effect for us. Generate an HTML image effect. We'll be using this URL because the one from Pokemon DB doesn't have transparent background. This one has, and It will be very useful for this kind of scenario. Generate an thermal image effect that transitions an image from grayscale to colored. Uh, this should last for 1 second and fuse with image URL. Stack. Let's render this. If we can make the transition longer. About 5 seconds. That takes way longer. Now let's add one more effect. Um, load. Oh, not that one. Load the image at 70%, but change the size to 120% when hovering. Okay. Combine the two effects. Copy. Transition to mm, transition is at 1.5 seconds. Ease filters. Okay. And let's test this in Power BI. Create a measure. Image transition. Like what we did in the other visual, or the other code. Let's replace double quotes with single quotes and wrap it. Okay. Image transition to transition to and from this it will be a lot of trial and error. You need to tell ChatGPT to generate a code for you so that the image doesn't get past the size of the container. So you can see here it's past the size of the container. Even if it, or you can actually change its size from 50 to 100 instead. If you are very good at HTML, It'll be pretty simple for you. Oh, I think that's kind of work. So what I'm doing here is kind of guessing which part of the code driver I need to change. Okay. And of course, you need to change the reference of the URL. So what is my URL here? URL. Large image URL transparent. So large image URL transparent. I'll change the URL to selected value. Large image URL transparent. Because I did not select. Well, I can change it to max. Then Pokemon name. Lucia. Mm, well, let's use some shape at the back. Let's change the color first. For Vaver. Let's copy this. Format. Then the back. And let's not forget to remove the background. Let's and then let's add some shapes. Shape. Let's change the rounding to 2%. And then the color to white. Color to white. Transparency is around 15%. No border. Then let's add some shadow. Format. Bring to front. Let's see. Let's oops. Now, when you're working with HTML visual, this happens a lot. So you need to kind of reduce the size of the HTML visual so it doesn't affect the dragging of the other visuals. Well, okay, that's about some of the techniques I used in this report. I'll be sharing with you sample physics together with the sample formulas I use in this visual, including the one for this Well, I hope you learned something and thank you for staying with me. Have a good one. Bye bye.